Alright, hello humans, my name is Dale, and for week 2 of BCM 112's vlog, I'm gonna just blast through as many of my notes on copyright that I wanted to talk about as I can. Notes made on an envelope, by the way, on the back of an envelope, because I can't just, take notes on my phone or in a book like a normal person. No, of course not. Regarding Shakespeare as one of the most famous writers in the entire world and how he produced his content during a non-copyright culture. I mean, we all know that there were stories before Shakespeare that he ripped off for his plays, and we know that there were stories after Shakespeare that were ripped off from Shakespeare plays. And we know that some of the Shakespeare plays that we have access to were not written down by Shakespeare at the time, they were just performed and then remembered and written down by one of his players later on. But what I do think is interesting is that we, looking at Shakespeare and his works in amongst all of this copyright culture and this saturation in the concept of idea property, there's an actual term for this, I just can't remember it. What's the word? There are lots of people who look at this and think that, well, Shakespeare mustn't have written his plays, which I'm suddenly wondering how much of that has to do with this intense need for attribution and definitive authorship. Hollywood has started cannibalizing itself. Have you noticed that? Because Ted mentioned the fact that we haven't seen movies that aren't based on anything in about 35 years. And so they've all been based on, books and games and comics since then. But have you noticed there's this recent trend of movies based on older movies, or like remakes? They're doing all the remakey things, like the Ghostbusters reboot and things like that. Don't get me, I'm excited for the Ghostbusters reboot, but just as an example, they've started to look back at things that they created and do remakes of that. Possibly, again, I hadn't considered this because they already own all the rights to it. Time Warner's Happy Birthday. Have you heard that a little while back there was actually a decision made that said that Time Warner has never owned the rights to Happy Birthday, and they've been illegally and immorally making claims on that song this entire time. My ownership notes week 1. Where's my notes from week 1? Oh! I know what I was talking about. I was mentioning the fact that there's sort of the original excuse of half of this behavior when it comes to, the web, has been from the point of view of the companies or the people who have this intellectual property that say, well, because there's increased access, there's increased availability, it means that an audience could potentially receive a product without actually paying for the product. But more what's happening now with all of these copyright systems that are in place, like on YouTube or on, Netflix or iTunes or Steam or any of these places, seems to be that audiences are paying, but they're not receiving the product. Why is the world like this? Yeah.